Welcome back to The Loop, a bold and fresh look at our lives in Kenya today. And tonight we are looking at the Constitution at 10, especially as it pertains to gender equality. And we've been joined this evening by Kamotho Waiganjo, who's a constitutional lawyer, and Karen Wakoli, who's the founder of Emerging Leaders Foundation. I got that right?
Yes.
Yes, and Winnie Lichuma.
Yeah, Winnie Lichuma is also online with us. She's not in studio, but she's joining us virtually. That's the former chairperson of the National Gender and Equality Commission. I still call her chair. So welcome, Winnie Lichuma. And I think we'll start with a question, this one generally to all our panelists here. 10 years down the line, when this constitution was promulgated, what were the hopes that you had for yourself as an individual and for Kenyans in general? You can start with Waiganjo.
I think there is the naive part of me that assumed that we were generally all committed to its transformative nature. And so I assumed that it would transform our politics, it would transform our economy, it would transform our society, it would transform our respect for rights. I'm older and wiser. I think I have now come to terms with the fact that societies take long to change. And a document is only as good as the people to whom it's addressing. And so there's a lot more that we needed to do in terms of creating a social consciousness for respecting and affirming the Constitution. And I think there's an assumption that the Constitution will be self-executing. Somehow it will just deliver. And the responsibility that we as individuals have, there is huge responsibility that those in leadership have, those, the Wananchi generally, I think a lot of that was not emphasized. And so, yes, there have been disappointments here and there, but I'm also aware that we've come from very far. I've been around for 50 years. So I do know that we have come from a very bad place and that the Constitution has taken us some steps. It could have taken us a lot further, but it's taken us some distance.
What about you? What were some of the hopes and dreams you had 10 years ago?
For me, the greatest hope and dream that I had was that poverty was going to be a thing of the past. And we're going to be seeing human dignity, like people being able to access healthcare, quality education, better infrastructure, social amenities, that we're going to have this devolution and all these leaders, that would amount to amazing leadership. But oh man, that has been crazy.
Okay. As somebody who works with young people, what would you say is their feeling right now about the Constitution at 10?
The implementation of the Constitution. So we have a great Constitution, we all agree. But then the implementation of the same, the latter and the spirit, it's a totally different ballgame. Especially when it comes to two-thirds gender rule and just equity in terms of access to opportunities for both young men, young women, women and persons with disability. That has been a big letdown. We have had an increase in terms of a bit more representation, but so much more can be done, which is not being done.
Right.
And I feel like there are many things we can be able to do to just make sure there's equity in terms of representation, equity in terms of access to opportunities here and there.
Okay, one of the things about the Constitution was that, it created some institutions which were supposed to address some of the things that you're talking about. One of the institutions, the National Gender and Equality Commission, definitely is a very key institution in terms of helping deliver some of the promises of the Constitution. And we have Commissioner Winnie Lichuma, who's the former chairperson of the National Gender and Equality Commission. Thank you for joining us this evening. Winnie Lichuma, can you hear me?
I can't hear her. Oh, there we go.
Okay, can you hear me, Commissioner?
Yes, I can hear you, Mike.
Okay, a good evening to you. Thank you for joining us virtually. What were your hopes and dreams 10 years ago when the Constitution was promulgated?
This gave me as a person new hope. Quite new hope in terms of what Kenyan women had longed for many, many years. And with that excitement, initially I was working at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. I saw the need of going to head this institution that was going to give women a new beginning. So in my mind, there were all new hopes in terms of what the Constitution was going to deliver to the people of Kenya. I looked at the sections, and especially the two-third gender rule was quite exciting. that we were going to have not more than 2/3 of any gender in any of the elective and appointive positions. Down deep in my mind, I knew women had a moment to celebrate, but it didn't go far. It really, really didn't go far. The journey was rough. For 6 years, all I did was to talk about inclusivity that was not happening. So I think I was wrong. I think, for me, how I sum up what we have seen, new hopes, old challenges.
Okay.
Let me leave it there for now.
Okay, Ms. Lichuma, I have a question for you. I read somewhere about gender-responsive budgeting, and then I did some research, and it's worked really well in Australia and in Norway and even in Asia. I was wondering, can you tell us what that is and why it was particularly important that you see this through?
Gender-responsive budgeting has been used as a tool that ensures that we do our budgeting in a way that respects the interests of men, women, boys, and girls. And gender-responsive budgeting has been successful down here just in Rwanda. And Kenya has made some efforts towards the 2/3 gender rule in terms of, can we have budgets put aside for matters women, for matters men, for matters disability. So when we talk about gender-responsive budgeting, we are not talking about separate budgets for men and women. I'll give you an example that maybe will bring this closer home. If you are going to construct a marketplace, all we are asking is, think about who uses the market. Men and women would use the market. What would the women prefer? If you have a market without toilets, men can easily go and do their thing around the flowers or the bushes. Can the women do the same? Of course not. So when you think about a simple thing like putting a toilet, that becomes gender-responsive budgeting. You need running water because women will come to the market with the babies. They need to wash their hands. They need sanitation. So clearly we are thinking about planning that respects the rights of men, women, boys, and girls. Hence, gender-responsive budgeting.
Yes. One other question I'd like to ask you, Commissioner, is the question of gender-based violence. I know the Commission was really instrumental in coming up with a model county policy for the counties to put in place to deal with issues of sexual and gender-based violence. But so far, I think we've only seen maybe 1 or 2 counties at most put that policy into place. And it's a really important one because it talks about some of the issues you're touching on. How can there be more resources at county level to ensure that there are programs put into place and certain actions happen to ensure gender-based violence is properly addressed throughout the county? Why do you think it's not been, why do you think it's not been taken up by most of the counties?
Gender-responsive, gender-based violence, Mike, as you know, is entwined within the cultural aspects. We're talking about gender-based violence in the home, domestic violence between men and women, but of course women are facing the brunt more than the men. We're talking about defilement of young girls in the homestead. We also have women generally facing violence across the country. Sexual harassment would be one of the aspects at the workplace. And when we began to put this together, we asked ourselves that issues around gender-based violence are issues that require commitment, consistency in terms of what needs to be done. We are thinking about aspects about how do we respond. The Sexual Offences Act is there, very clear, but it wasn't giving us the results. We tried to see police stations having the gender desks, but that did not, again, yield results. So when we looked at the architecture of the Constitution, we realized that matters health are devolved service. And therefore, we began a 3-year campaign keeping the promise to end gender-based violence. And in our thinking, we were like, if the county governments at the governor's level were to sign on to the commitment, then they would put money aside, first of all, to educate the masses, to ensure that the women, when they face violence, they have safe houses, they have safe places to go. You're thinking about this girl who gets defiled by her own father. And we saw a bit of that cases across the country. And she has to stay in this same house with the father. So we thought about safe houses that would be put in place, and you need resources to put the safe houses. Finally, I mean, you need the evidence, the medical evidence. And we were in the view that if we did what we call a one-stop center, so that within the health facilities, the governors would make available the desk for reporting, that you would go in, you report the case, you get a P3 form, you get your SR form filled, and you move on and you see the doctor. And if possible, the courts would then also have the hearings within the same roof. That would give us security for women to want to prosecute the matters. Now, the challenge here is that you get violated, you know the perpetrator. You go, you report, the perpetrator is arrested, the next minute they're given bond and they're at home.
Yeah.
The threats, of course, still come back to you. And you find that most women will never want to report the matters. And when they do, the evidence is so weak because the police do not investigate in good time. Within 24 hours, you lose the evidence in a sexual offense.
That's very true.
Where do we get the evidence to secure? So that's why we did this campaign. And for me, I thought the governors would buy in and put resources, and so that every county would have one-stop center. And that, I think, would have given service to the women of this country. Unfortunately, it has never happened. We only have it in one county, I believe.
Definitely. It's still a struggle for that to happen. One of the other struggles that we're also finding is the issue of women's political representation. We'll talk more with our panel on that after this short break. But of course, remember, we still want your feedback, your thoughts and opinions. What has this constitution done for you 10 years down the line? Do you feel it in your everyday life? Let us know. Hashtag the Loop K24. And of course, the WhatsApp number is on the screen right now. We'll talk more about that after this break.